Hello everybody. I'm Paul Amersma. I'm going to be talking about Chromecast, or as we call it, Googlecast. Can everybody see the screen all right? Because there is some code, so maybe you want to move forward a little bit. Can everybody see it all right? Yeah, back there you also? Perfect. Right, so I'm Paul Amersma. I'm from the Netherlands, so it's been quite a trip to get over here. I'm very excited to be in New York City again, so thanks for having me, first of all. I'm from a company called Pixplicity. We're a software engineering company in the Netherlands. We do specifically mobile technologies, so apps, but also integrated solutions using AOSP variants. So it's also great to see JDQ here. That was awesome. Right, so Googlecast. So what is Googlecast? Does everybody here know what Googlecast is? Or let me say that differently. Who doesn't know what Googlecast is? Perfect. There are people that don't know what it is. That's perfect. Because, do you know what this is? Have you seen this before? Right, Chromecast, exactly. So what's the difference then between Chromecast and Googlecast? There isn't. It's the name of the technology. Googlecast now also includes Android TV. So it's basically the same technology to basically cast something from your device onto a big screen like this TV here. So I'm going to try to do that later. It's a bit of a challenge to get it working. It's very fickle, so just bear with me. Right, so Googlecast, what is that? It's basically getting something from your device, like a tablet or a smartphone or a desktop computer or laptop, onto a TV, like a big screen like this. And you can kind of see it as like a remote control. You use your device to basically control content, like watching a movie on Google Play Movies, or maybe something on Netflix, or any of the other apps that are already featured using Googlecast technologies, for instance YouTube, or casting a tab from Chrome. So that's pretty cool. What does the technology actually contain? Well, it's basically just an app on your TV. You can stream through the TV, and you can basically control it from your smartphone device or laptop. So, but of course, we wouldn't be developers if we would have a technology like this and we would plug into our TV and we wouldn't immediately think, wouldn't it be awesome if we could make our own thing? So of course we can, and that's why you're here. So before I actually get started, let's take a look at what we'll actually need. Of course you need a Chromecast. It's a $35 dongle that you stick straight into your TV, and 2 minutes of setup and you're good to go. Unless of course you're at a conference and it's more like 20 minutes of setup and maybe you can go, but that's a different story. The technology is really designed to work in your living room. So it's not protected, you don't log into it or anything. It's on your Wi-Fi. If it's on your Wi-Fi, anybody can see it. So anybody who's on the Wi-Fi can rickroll me. So don't do that, please. So you can basically cast from any device. You'll see the Chromecast button in the corner of your screen. So what do you need? You need a TV like this, something that has HDMI input. You need a Wi-Fi at home with the internet connection. I'll get into a little bit of detail why you need an internet connection in a moment. You need something that provides USB power. Now in this image here, you'll see that it's plugged into the USB of the TV. That usually works. It's quite a cool solution because then it's a really short cable and it's plug and forget. So that's quite nice. You can also plug in, of course, into an outlet, or like I actually have it here. I have a battery pack powering it, so that even works. And of course, you need something to send: a laptop, smartphone, whatever. So, there are two parts, basically, to the Chromecast story, or the Googlecast story. That's the sending part and the receiving part. And those are two distinct things. I'll only be talking about sending from Android. I already mentioned you can do it from iOS. You can also do it from Chrome, through the browser extension for Chromecast. So we'll look at how to build a sender app in Android. And the other side of the story is also a receiver app. So that's basically just a simple HTML page that is loaded up onto the Chromecast and displayed on the big screen through HDMI. So, how does it actually work? There is actually a communication channel that goes both directions to your Chromecast and from the Chromecast back to your sender app. So it's actually a communication channel, and you can actually set up multiple connections. So if you have, for instance, two devices, suppose you and your wife are sitting on the couch or something like that, and you both want to set up a YouTube TV queue, you can, and it's actually pretty awesome because if I add something to queue, it shows up on my girlfriend's TV queue as well. So it's pretty cool that it actually works both directions. Now I'll get into the nitty-gritty of actually performing the flow. And I hate these circular flows because you never know where to start looking. But let's just start right here. We're launching the Sender app. You launch the Sender app. Basically, the flow is the Sender app then goes and looks on your local area network for cast devices. It then connects to one through the user. You as a user select one. You launch or join the receiver app, and then you really end up in the circular flow of sending, receiving messages until at one point the user is, of course, done watching his movie or whatever he's trying to do. And finally, of course, you disconnect and maybe launch another app. So we'll look at this in a lot more detail in a moment. So the Sender app has the responsibility of doing a couple of things. And of course, to start out with, you as a Sender app, you have to take the responsibility of actually looking for the cast devices. Of course, you look on your local area network, and the SDK helps you in performing this basic broadcast for asking a Chromecast to basically announce itself. There are two different ways of doing that. You can actively scan or you can passively scan. Again, I'll show you the code for that later. You can scan for a device, but that provides some sort of interface and button that shows in the UI. And bear in mind, if you, for instance, make the YouTube app, you don't want a button in the action bar that provides Chromecast technology for people that don't have Chromecast, because then it's this confusing interface. It's a button, people press it, and they don't know what that does. You know, I mean, it doesn't work, it doesn't connect to anything, nothing shows up. So bear in mind, when you're actually adding the cast button, make sure it only actually shows in your interface if there's a Chromecast on your area network. And finally, of course, when the user actually selects a Chromecast device to connect to, you want to either start or join a session. So basically, starting a receiver app. So the other side of the story, of course, the receiver application. So again, that's the application that runs on the Chromecast. So it's a basic HTML application, just JavaScript, HTML, CSS, what have you. And it's loaded up from the network. Now, this is where the internet connection becomes kind of important. And I always mention it because it's always a challenge at a conference to get it working, because the way that it works is it works through a unique identifier that you register as a developer on the cast webpage. And if that identifier cannot be resolved, then the Chromecast doesn't know actually where to find the source of your receiver application. So it's all through internet. It downloads it. Sometimes if it has it, it's cached, so that's great. But if you don't actually have internet connection, it's going to be tricky. And I mention this because oftentimes a common use case of using Google Cast might, for instance, be sharing photos on your TV. Maybe you're with friends or family and you want to share your vacation photographs or something like that. Of course, this is a perfect use case, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Why do I need internet for this? Because you can just stream it directly from your device. Well, you need the internet to actually resolve which receiver application you're trying to get. So, and again, finally, the communication between your Android device and your Chromecast is through a message bus. All right. Google provides 3 different types of receivers. The first one is just a basic default media receiver. It doesn't really have any styling to it. It's just basically a black screen. As you open it up, you instruct it where to stream video from. There's no styling, there's no branding to it, it just plays video. And that's cool because it's absolutely the lowest barrier thing. You don't have to write a single line of code for the receiver app, and it just works out of the box. There is a style variant of that gives you some options to add some CSS and a little bit of your own branding to it. So if you're just trying to play media, then that's kind of a cool solution because you can make it brand colors, maybe add a logo or something in there, and it still just streams the media. And then you can completely customize it. You can make it whatever you like. You can make your own HTML application, post it somewhere, and instruct Google, the cast device, to fetch it. And you have complete control over what it does. Now, there is a restraint, of course. There is a caveat here. A whopping $5 registration, so you have to be able to cough that up. So I think most of us can cough that up. I think that's all right. But you do have to register. You actually have to register your application. And I'll get into how to do that in just a moment. First, I want to point out, of course, the documentation. I think it's always kind of lame to have a talk and go into, well, check the docs, well, why am I here? But it is important because this particular design checklist is a great place to start, because not only is it just about actually designing what makes it look good, but it also also really, by step, makes you think about the flow that you're going through. So you really can't make a lot of mistakes if you really go through the checklist of the different, and also avoiding common pitfalls and that sort of thing. It's a great place to start. Of course, there's also the developer guide for both sender and receiver apps and API reference. So it is quite well documented. It's definitely, I would say, a finished product. There are also samples. Google has provided a decent set of samples. The sample that I hope to show you, a demo at the end if we have time, is based on one of the samples by Google. And it's not just for Android, of course, it's also for iOS, it's also for web. So if you really want to find a all-in solution for your Chromecast for all different devices, it's a great place to start. I love learning by example, and that's definitely worth it. And finally, there's also a community. The Google Cast developers community is very active. You pop a question on there, and you literally minutes later might get a response. So you can't remember that. I shortened it in a more sensible way. TinyCC Cast community. You can, of course, just look it up on Google+. Okay, let's talk about this Android Sender app. There's a lot of preparation involved. The most important thing to bear in mind when you're registering is that you first register your cast device. You'll see here at the bottom, I've registered 2 different devices, my own with my girlfriends and my colleagues. Make sure that it says here, ready for testing. If it's not ready for testing, you're going to have a bad time. You're going to be waiting for your device to connect and find the Chromecast device, and it never shows up. And if you don't know why that is, there's no way to debug it. So make sure this is a good place to start, ready for testing. The other side of the story is also make sure you register your application. You don't have to publish it as long as your device is ready for testing. So just make sure you register, making sure you get this application ID. You're going to need it when you're plugging it into your source code, so you can't make a mistake there because you need that ID. Now this is the ID of the cast demo I'll be giving in a moment. More preparation. Once you set up your cast device, make sure as a developer that you have selected this option here for sending the Chromecast serial number when communicating with Google. Otherwise, it won't be available for testing. That is really important. I've sat around waiting so many times for my cast button to appear, only to discover that this setting wasn't set up. It's so stupid. So that's an important one. Now finally, the libraries you'll be needing. The top 2 are requirements. You need the media router support library. That also in turn requires the app compat, so you need that one as well. And Google Play services for an API client. And there's a library that is quite useful. It's called the Cast Companion Library. It takes a lot of work out of your hands, but it is quite imposing. There's a lot of code in there. You might not fully understand how things are working, but I find it very useful. I definitely recommend using that. Alright, now let's get into the code. The flow, let's take a look at this flow again. So, starting with the launch sender part of the flow, the way that it basically works is you have a button that the user clicks on literally to select a cast device to send to. Now this is either a action bar button that Google provides you, or a media router button that you can put anywhere in your interface that Google also provides you. Of course, it wouldn't be Android if you can make your own, and of course you can. So again, the important part is make sure you only show that button when a device is discovered. So how does that work in, for instance, the YouTube app? If you have a Chromecast device, you've probably seen this button show up in YouTube. It's super easy. You click on it, and you get a selection for the devices. If you're already playing a video, it shows up in the action bar in a slightly different way. This is the media router action provider. So how do we implement that media router action provider? This is just a normal menu. It's a standard action provider class, and just provide a fully qualified path to it, and it works like magic. So that's literally all. By the way, those of you who want to check the slides later, the slides are open source. I'll share a link to the end. Alright, so the flow that you have to go through of actually getting things working. Now bear in mind, just plugging that action provider into your action bar does not mean it will magically work. You actually have to take the responsibility of setting up a media router, creating a root selector so that the user can select a cast device, and a callback for when they actually discover a Chromecast device. You have to do it yourself. How does that look in code? Well, suppose this is your onCreate. You obtain an instance of the media router. Hold on to that reference, you'll need it later. Creating a media root selector. Basically what you're doing here in the add control category is you're specifying to the API that you want to look for media roots of the type Chromecast, or Google Cast. And then finally you create a callback for your connections. I'll show you what that callback looks like in just a moment. That callback is basically a discovery. You invoke at start of the discovery and stopping. The best way to do that, in my opinion, is just simply on your on resume and on pause, because it's unlikely that your user is going to be interacting with the Chrome, searching for Chromecast devices if your app is not in the foreground. So here I have implemented my on resume. I've said that I want my media router to discover Chromecast devices. Now, you can also make it actively search for Chromecast devices, and the difference is subtle, but it makes a big impact on your battery life. I don't think you would typically use the active scan. Just sitting around and waiting for the Chromecast device to broadcast itself over the network, it takes maybe 30 seconds. So if you're really so impatient that you want to do that, maybe you want to do the active scan, but I would discourage that, doing that. And of course, on the on pause, you remove the callback again. Simple stuff. Right, so how do we actually connect once you select a root? Yeah, what does actually selecting a root look like? Well, that's this part in the YouTube app where you tap on the Chromecast button and you select a device. In this case, you only have one device. You just select Explicity Chromecast device here, and it starts working. What's happening under the hood is you obtain a cast device from the selected root. I'll show you the code, and you connect through an API client. That looks like this. You have a cast device. You obtain that from the bundle that you get from selecting the root. And you basically create a builder from that. The important part to note here is that you're specifying that you want the cast API, so you only want to connect to you're creating a Google API client of type cast API. You want to implement the connection callbacks to know when your device actually connects, so you can start sending messages. And you can also optionally add a connection failed listener. Finally, do the magic of creating a Google API client. Hold on to that reference, you'll need it later and connect. Okay, cool. So, connection callback, what does that look like? It's really simple. Basically, the idea is, as soon as your device connects, there will of course be some latency, so you're dealing with a life cycle of the connection to the device. Perform the action of actually launching the receiver app. And if the connection is suspended, I haven't implemented this. You could say, well, at the point that the connection it goes basically on the standby, you could recreate the message bus, or you could do something else, maybe disconnect. That's up to you. So launching the actual receiver app, there are two different things you can do. You can either launch a new receiver application, or you can join an existing session. Again, take the example of sitting on the couch watching YouTube. If my girlfriend's sitting next to me and I've already launched the YouTube cast app, she can join that session. And that's a distinct different kind of action, because she's basically joining an existing session, getting information of the current TV queue and stuff like that, versus actually launching a new application, basically shutting down YouTube, opening up, for instance, Netflix. So there's two different things you can do there. What does that look like in YouTube again? Well, they take this opportunity when it's launching the app to show a connection. So it shows a busy indicator that the connection is taking place. As soon as the connection is established, then they show this TV queue. The code looks like this. Basically, just launching the application, you provide in your cast API ID right here. If you're instead trying to join an existing session, pretty much the same story, but you do join an application. A common question here is, what is that session ID? Forget about that. That is just for a reconnection. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you know whether to join or launch a session?
How do you know?
How do you know whether to join a session or launch a session?
Yeah, that's a great question. That question was, how do you know whether to join or create a new session? Basically, if your app supports multiple sessions, what you could best do is try to join, and you'll get an error response saying receiver app not running, and then you launch it. Okay, so the result callback. So this is on the at the moment that your device is actually connected. What you're doing here is you're specifying that you want to receive callbacks every single time a message received. So this is the flow that you get receiving messages from the receiver application to your sender application. It's important here you have a cast namespace. What does that look like? It's a URI of this type, URN : xcast : and then your fully qualified path to your application. And you can fill in that message received callback however you please. Again, another to do here, whatever, disconnect. If it's not successful, actually to immediately jump on that question, what you would do here is, how's that? Take care for joining applications. If you're not trying to launch the application, so you're joining and it doesn't succeed because the application isn't running, try to launch the application. Right, so at this point we can basically assume that our application is running, that the receiver app is running, your sender app is communicating with it, and you need to set up a channel over which you send messages. So you can send messages, you receive messages, they're all strings by the way. And that would look something like this in the YouTube app. Basically performing actions, whether it's pressing pause, seeking, changing the volume, adding maybe a new video to the TV queue. Those are all messages you send to the receiver app. The receiver app might send you messages back when my girlfriend, for instance, adds a video so that it shows up in my sender app too. That works like this. So basically sending a message, here again the cast namespace, take care that you fill that in correctly, and you get a result callback when your message is attempted to be sent. So you'll get a success or not. So if it's not successful, yeah, again, it's up to you. What do you want to do with that? You want to try again? It's up to your implementation.
The market is really hard right now.
For receiving messages, kind of the opposite story. You just set up a callback, and when the message is received, you have some logic for receiving a message. Again, totally up to your implementation. It's just to illustrate how this callback works. So at some point, you're maybe done with your application when it disconnects. You have to take care to do this correctly. Otherwise, your API client is going to keep the connection open. You want to close that connection down. So first, you unselect the route. I don't know what that means from connection failure. Oh, this is the different reasons why you do it. Sorry. When the device is unselected, that could happen, for instance, because the device disappeared. If you have a connection failure for whatever reason, the different to-dos I pointed out, when your receiver app was closed down, maybe my girlfriend opened up Netflix, my application shut down, so you have to take care to disconnect the API client. Or maybe your application has just completely disappeared, it's destroyed. Also a good moment maybe to also actually register to disconnect that the receiver app also shuts down. And when you look at this through the interface that YouTube, for instance, provides, this is the standard cast interface for that. You can change the volume from there. You can press a disconnect. At that point, your route will become unselected, and you can handle your disconnect from a callback event. So how do we actually do this? This is what I was talking about earlier. You stop the receiver app, you unregister the callback from receiving messages, and you disconnect the API client. Here I have a couple of stuff just setting everything to null so that my application is in a state that it understands it's disconnected as well. Okay, cool. So we've done a sender app. This is only half the story, of course, if you've been paying attention. You also have to write the receiver app. So yeah, that's a to-do. I'm not going to talk about that because it's JavaScript mostly, and I am not a JavaScript guru, but I'll say one thing. If I can do it, I know anybody can, because JavaScript's not my thing, and it's really easy. It's very trivial. Maybe I can find a moment to show you the code of how I did my receiver app, but it's really basic stuff. If you're handy in JavaScript, you can make the most beautiful receiver applications, and there are a lot of great ones out there. But it's kind of outside the scope of this particular talk. There are a couple of pretty cool things that Google has provided in Chromecast. One of the things is actually being able to debug your device. Have any of you actually have used the Chrome debug panel for JavaScript and inspecting requests? And yeah, everybody's used that, right? And the beautiful thing is, if you open up this web page in Chrome, that DOM inspector just works, and you can actually select, like mouse over different DOM elements, and they highlight on Chromecast. So it's absolutely beautiful, and you can see real time the different requests that are coming by, so you can really drill down to the cause of maybe some connectivity problem, or why messages are coming in a different format or something like that. It does require you to set it up as a testing device. There are lots of gotchas, lots of things that I was surprised by. I want to really emphasize, make sure your device is ready for testing. I've sat so many times just looking at the empty screen, waiting for the device discovery to pop up, and it just never did because I'm an idiot, and it had everything to do with this screen again, right? So make sure your device is set up for testing. If your device does not show up as testing, but you have checked the button, it's a good idea to reboot your Chromecast a couple of times, because when it boots, it connects to Google and it exchanges some data. So if it doesn't show up, reboot a couple of times, give it half an hour, maybe it'll work. Other gotchas. Yeah, take good care to cope with that life cycle of the connection to your receiver app asynchronously. I mean, it's obvious, right? But it is something that can be challenged at times. Your application's activity, of course, has its own life cycle. When you pause your activity or when you rotate the screen, you have a configuration change of some sort or another. Correctly handling that and making sure you're not having multiple instances of contexts. Take care to be careful of that and keep it in mind. Another thing to bear in mind is those unexpected disconnects. Anything that really has to do with radio frequency communication has an unexpected disconnect. The Chromecast is especially fickle when it comes to the reliability of your Wi-Fi. I've had, it's really, your mileage might vary. I mean, at home, I'm sitting directly next to my router. Sometimes it just disconnects. I don't know why. And another cause of looking at an app that doesn't have a discovery button showing up is just forgetting to start the scan. It's the stupidest thing. So it's another gotcha. Again, that useful stuff with the different docs and samples and the community page, definitely check it out if you want to get started. It makes it super easy to get started. I made my first app in a weekend. There's one thing I want to point out is the added value of Chromecast. I think you can really make your app stand out by having it featured as a cast-ready app. I think that the popularity of Chromecast is really beginning to come. If your app makes sense on a big screen, you definitely want to take a look into it. It's also super fun to develop for. It will make your app stand out. There's a special part of the Google Play Store, especially for Chromecast-supported apps. So maybe it's a great opportunity to make your app just have some special place on the Google Play Store, because it's next to impossible to find a new app on the Play Store. So it gives you a little bit more. So, thanks again for watching. I'm not sure if I have time for a demo. Yeah, I have time for a demo. Okay, does anybody want to have a question before I get into the demo? What version of Chrome? I don't know, to be honest. I think it's a recent version. There are regular updates when you boot your cast device. It will check for updates. So I presume it's a relatively recent version of Chrome, but I can't say which one.
There's no major restrictions.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you use like
Yeah, so the question is, like, what kind of Chrome technologies can you use? It's Chrome, so you can basically use anything Chrome supports. I'm not sure how well it integrates with using like iframes, that sort of thing. The idea is really that it's a basic HTML page, but my experience is that it works as well as Chrome. There is a limitation on the hardware. It's not the fastest device you've ever had. It could be my crummy JavaScript skills and maybe CSS skills, that animations that you try to make are really janky. But yeah, it's maybe something to bear in mind. So the question is, can you locally host your receiver app? Are you really constrained to using the internet to have the receiver app, right? Do you need you need internet. I mean, it's going to be on the internet whether you want it or not, because that app ID is that is Google's lookup to where that's hosted. So you're going to need internet whether it's hosted locally or not. There are solutions to that. I know there's an app that does some sort of trick to make it local, but the primary problem is that lookup to Google is over HTTPS. So it has to have the Google certificate. You need an internet connection for that alone. So maybe you could, if it's still cached or something, then it would work. Yeah, there is a solution for that. I don't know exactly what it's called off the top of my head. It's maybe worth looking into. I'm afraid I can't answer that with more certainty than that. Yeah, should we take a look at the code maybe? I want to show you first one nifty little feature of Chromecast at the moment. That is casting your screen. Now I'm hoping it's going to work. Yeah, no such luck, I don't believe. Well, while that's trying to connect, let's go ahead and take a look at some code. Before you guys all freeze in disbelief, yes, I am actually still running the Eclipse. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, somebody's opening up YouTube. That wasn't me. Alright, let's just make sure you're disconnected there. Alright, so this is me, this is my device, I'm casting on my device. You can actually give live demos, it's pretty cool for a speaker, you can maybe show something real time. At the moment it's quite laggy, probably an internet connection. So this is quite nice, you can actually show a live preview of your device. It's pretty cool, yeah, so, and it's disconnected, I think. So that is quite nice. The other nice thing is I actually have my cast device here. I'm afraid it's disconnecting, you can't see it. Yes, so this is my cast demo app. What I've done here is I've basically just implemented the media action provider. Tapping on the button in the top right brings up this connect to the device. So this is taken care of by the SDK for you, showing this screen. It shows you what you're currently connected to, so you can see that this is already over that message channel. It's showing you that it's currently casting the screen. If I tap on that, it launches my receiver app, and fingers crossed. It's not working. So at the moment I can see on my device that it's trying to connect. Something you might not have noticed, by the way, is I didn't actually interact with the TV to switch HDMI inputs. That's something quite nice. The Chromecast supports HDMI CE, which is Consumer Electronics Standard. It will actually instruct your TV, if your TV supports it, to switch channels. And the cool thing is, if you actually switch channels again and you choose a different device, a different app to launch, it'll switch channels back to your receiver app. So it's really a proper remote control. So I think that's pretty cool. Sorry?
It will also turn on the TV.
Yes, if your TV is on standby, it will turn on your TV, but make sure that your TV supports USB power while on standby. If it doesn't, that's not a big deal. Just plug in your Chromecast through your power outlet, and then you can just walk in when you get home, you can sit down on the couch, you can press the Netflix button, and your TV will switch on, and it's a proper remote control. Yes, it works. Yay, hooray. Alright, this is at least something. So I basically built an application, and you saw it just a moment ago, where what I can do is I can basically send a message to the message board here, and I can connect with multiple devices at the same time. Now this is going to be really challenging, hoping that it's going to work. So I have another device, I'm going to see if I can connect to that as well. Yes, so that they're both connected. And what I'm basically doing here is am I over time?
No, you're good.
Okay. So what I'm basically doing is when the connection is established, it negotiates with the receiver app through a a standard that I've devised myself, basically just JSON, just encapsulated messages with message codes and whatever you please. You can make it as you like. And when your device first connects, it just says, hey there, you know, hello, welcome, whatever. And I can then give it a Alright, well, you can also send messages. I'm not going to try doing that again. One last little thing that I wanted to show you was the code. It's really, really small. I'm sorry about that. I also don't know how to change it. This is the receiver app. You probably can't see it in the back, but basically what I'm importing here is I'm importing from Google the cast receiver JavaScript. It takes all the logic of the receiving end of the Google API client. It takes that completely out of your, offloads that work for you, and you can basically just register a cast receiver manager, and you basically just get callbacks again. So at the point that I receive that the device is ready, I can output that to my log. When I connect, I can also do something with that. So in particular cases, what I do here is I actually output to my message here on message. I say, oh, there's a new user here, and it just shows up in my receiver app as welcome Paul, whatever. So this is really basic stuff, and even I could write it, and I'm sure so can you.
Does the receiver app code shift with the app code, with your Android app code, or does that need to get sent to Google somewhere?
With your receiver app code, you mean? What do you mean?
Yeah, with the packaged Android application. The receiver app code gets sent to that?
No. The receiver app code is this code that I showed you. My application is hosted online. Again, all you're doing in your sender application is instructing which app ID. So you register that app ID on Google Cast's the registration page, and you basically fill in where do I find the page that is the receiver application. So that's related to this question over here. Can you also host it locally? Yeah, not really. You would basically have to have some redirect that makes it a local IP lookup or something like that. Maybe something with Dyn DNS or so, I don't know. But in this particular case, it's just hosted on our website, and it's literally an HTML page. Outputting audio is basically the question of how do you output audio? Directly from your sender application. Oh, I don't know about that. That's tricky. You'd have to code everything with the message channel, so the communication bus. So actually sending audio from your sender app to the receiver app, that would, I don't know, to be honest. Outputting audio direct from your receiver app is, of course, trivial. Anything that creates audio, whether it's HTML5 audio or a video with audio included, of course, just works. The Chromecast does have audio over HDMI, so it is digital, so you can't get that into a analog output, unfortunately. But yeah, that does work. By getting it directly from your sender app, I can't say that I know how it works. Any other questions? Okay, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here, and I hope to see you around.